I'm Ashley Baker. I'm the Communications and Program Manager at Tualatin Valley Creates. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I know there's a lot of virtual programs out there. So since we're a pretty big group, please keep your microphone muted. Also, you're welcome to turn your video on if you want to, no obligation to. So I'm going to today talk about how to engage your audience online, and then I'm going to hand it off to Andrea at the Portland Opera to talk about what they're doing specifically during this time of change and crisis communications, and give you some really specific examples of things that you can implement in your own organizations. I'm also going to be asking questions throughout this workshop, and you can use the chat box to answer those. So if everybody sees the little chat icon at the bottom of their screen, you can chat to everybody. So there will be a couple times when I ask you things about what you're doing in terms of your online engagement, and I would welcome you to share your thoughts and ideas. And if you have questions at any point in time, Razia Rushan, our Executive Director, is also on the call. She'll be helping with technical support and moderating the chat. So feel free to ask questions at any point in time, because I don't want you to have to wait all the way until the very end to get to ask your questions. So let's see, I'm going to have Andrea introduce herself. She's to my right, and then she'll pass the mic around, and if you would like to introduce yourself and the organization you're affiliated with, please do so. So Andrea, I'll hand it off to you to go around the room.
Thanks, Ashley. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to be here today. I'm Andrea Tishy. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications as part of the External Affairs teams at Portland Opera. And it's a really challenging time right now, and so I'm really excited to sort of dig in and talk about solutions and lessons learned and what we've messed up and what we kind of got right. And hopefully that'll spur some conversation and ideas. So thanks for having me.
And on the right of Andrea, I see Cindy, if you would like to briefly introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. On my screen, it's not that way.
No worries.
I'm Cindy Wilkins, and I'm the Executive Director of Stages Performing Arts Youth Academy. And I miss the good old days. I would love to see some live theater, and we're trying really hard to figure things out so that we can do something more in person, at least with our students.
Awesome. And if you can ask the person, whoever is to your right on the screen, to introduce themselves, that would be great.
It would be Razia.
Great. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Razia Rushan. I'm Tualatin Valley Creates Executive Director. And as mentioned, I'm here to help with any questions you might have. So feel free to use the chat function, and I highly encourage you to share contact information with individuals as they introduce themselves, and if you'd like to stay connected after this workshop as well. Thank you. So to my right, I have Michael Tinnison.
Hi, thanks. I'm here with the Westside Community and Youth Orchestra. We're a community orchestra in Hillsboro, Oregon. We're in a pretty quiet mode right now, so I'm anxious to see what we can learn about engaging people virtually. Thanks.
Thanks for joining. Lisa, I see you're next to Michael on my screen. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Lisa Seward, and I'm new to Tualatin Valley Creates. I'm a consultant with them for the next about 9 months, working with the incubator project and recruiting faculty and participants to work with their arts business skills. Nice to be here.
Thanks, Lisa. And Beth, I see you on here too.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Beth Toby. I'm the Arts Program Manager for the City of Beaverton. So we're a partner on this workshop series. And I miss the good old days too. I wish we could be back in person, but I've also found that some of these virtual and online things are very convenient for people. So I think going forward, maybe we'll have a mix of the two, hopefully. But I'll put my contact information in the chat box.
Thanks, Beth.
And who is next to me? Razia is next to me, and you already went, so.
That's everyone that we have who's on video. Is there anybody who's calling in that wanted to quickly introduce themselves?
I guess I'll go ahead. Hi, everyone. My name is Jose Madrid. I go by they, them, theirs, ella, and I'm with Familias en Acción. I'm the HIV/STI Sexual Health Program Coordinator, and I believe my manager is also signed on today as well. And we're both just really, well, I guess I'll speak for myself, but we're both really curious about this workshop and trying to see what we can learn in terms of trying to help us with virtual learning and just virtual engagement.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining. Glad you could make it.
Thank you.
I'll just follow Jose since Jose already introduced me, but I'm Isla Rosen, and I am the Familias en Acción. I work with Jose, so I'm the program manager for the HIV program, and we're doing a lot of outreach and figuring out how to have virtual events, as well as do some virtual curriculums and education. So that's kind of why I'm here today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining.
I'll go as well, actually. I'm Alicia, and I'm a wire science teaching artist. I actually moved here last fall, right before COVID, and I was teaching at the NC State Craft Center. And so now that I'm not teaching anywhere because of the virus and my move, I kind of wanted to see how I could translate my teachings virtually. So I thought this would be helpful. Very grateful.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. I know you managed to get in at the last minute, so thank you for reaching out.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right.
Anybody? My name is Shauna Zimmerman, and I am the president of the ACMA Theater Company parent group. It's a group, it's part of a public school if you guys are in Beaverton, an art school. And I'm also the social media coordinator for the Sexton Mountain Neighborhood Association. So I just wanted to see what there was out there, what the, like Cindy was saying, with the theater community. We're certainly trying to find more opportunities for the kids and ways for them to promote what they're doing, find different ways to promote their art. So that's why I'm joining in.
Great. That's awesome. So glad to have you.
Hi, I am looking mysterious here in the dark. Sorry about that. I'm Crystal Elam. I'm with the Hillsboro Symphony Orchestra, and we're just really accepting that, okay, we're not doing real concerts for a while. It's probably time to, get on Instagram, get on, the social media and see how we can engage with our audience. So we're looking to start putting out content in October. So this is really perfect timing for us. Thanks for putting it on.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for joining. Sounds like you're in the right place. All right. Anybody else? Last round. I see Birdie?
Bridie. Hi, I'm Bridie Harrington. I'm Cultural Arts Program Supervisor with the City of Hillsboro. I'm going to turn my video off after this just because I have to go in and out of this meeting a little bit, but we are also moving into the brave world of online programming and miss in-person programming. So just interested in learning what everyone else is up to and what they're learning for best practices.
Awesome. Glad you could make it. Anybody else? Then we'll go right. Oh,
I'll just
April. Hi, April.
Hi. I apologize. I had to go out and come back in because I had zero audio. I didn't get to hear most of you, so I jumped out and came back in. And now I can hear you. Yay.
Yay.
I'm April Hoff. I run a business called Artingales, which is a teaching art business, which made me be able to partner with Valley Art Association in Forest Grove. And I handle their education program as well and coordinate all the teachers. And we definitely, both as a retail and in the teaching section, are looking for ways to engage virtually because most people are not competent with in-person classes, even though we have resumed those. So yeah, just looking to see what we can learn here from you all. And I'm also going to go off video just because I'm holding my camera and I would like to put it down.
Makes sense. Thank you for the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining. It's really nice to have this room full of incredible community members. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen and jump into the presentation. And like I said, at any point, if you have questions, throw them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them as I go along, and Razi will point them out to me. So thank you all for joining. And let's see, you might see all of your faces when I share my screen. We're going to see how this goes. All right. So you are all in engaging your audience virtually. Hopefully you have found yourself in the correct classroom. This is part of the Creative Impact Workshop series, which we organize each year with the City of Hillsboro Cultural Arts Division and the City of Beaverton Arts Program. So this is just a little quick agenda so you know where we're going today. I'm going to be presenting for about half an hour, and then we'll have a quick break, bio break or Q&A, stretch, whatever you need. And then Andrea will go into the Portland Opera portion of the presentation. So these are the 5 themes that we're going to be talking about today. What is engagement? How do you know how to figure out who you want to talk to? What is your content strategy going to look like? How to focus on human-centered storytelling, and using tools online for building relationships before you use them for transactions. So, and these are the main tools we're going to go over: website, social media, and email. And we're just going to really briefly touch on virtual events and live streams, given the current world that we're in. So this is a quick question for the chat box. If you want to type your answer in there, would you say that your audience is engaged? And if you are, what platforms would you say they're engaged on? I'm just going to give everyone a couple of seconds to put an answer in the chat box if you want. Let's see, and I cannot see the chat box, so bear with me for 1 second.
So Ashley, this is Ravi, if you can hear me and everybody can hear me. Yeah. If you don't get to see the chat box, I can help read it off, and some of the answers from Beth included mostly email and e-news as a means to engage. That from Cindy shared that we are engaged with social media. We use Hootsuite platform as a means to share content. From Lisa, not quite as engaged as I would like them to be. And then Angela shared that they're using the virtual studio concerts. Jose shared being engaged via podcast, social media, and email. And stop me when you've got it pulled up as well.
Great, I did manage to pull it up. So thank you for everyone putting your answers in there. Yeah, definitely Facebook. Pretty much everybody has one, right? So that's a great place to start. And we're going to talk about social media a little bit, and how to not just have followers, right? But how to get them to actually do what you want them to do. So this slide is defining engagement. So I like these 2 definitions for what we're talking about today: participate or become involved in, or establishing a meaningful contact or connection with. So you want to have, like I said, a relationship with people. It's not just about them knowing that you exist. You want them to actually be involved in some way. So I'm going to attempt to show you a video example from the Donate Life America, and it's makes an instant connection with the viewer. So this is just a very, very overt example of what it looks like when you're using human focused emotional storytelling to drive engagement. And it's a little bit jarring because it's about heart transplants, at the beginning, but I think you'll see, I'm just gonna show like the first 30 seconds what I mean by this human first connection, and hopefully it plays. Razier, please let me know if it doesn't play.
So happy. I've been waiting so long. I can breathe again and talk. Feel good? Amazing. It's amazing? It's amazing. I never felt so good.
My name is Carla, and we've been waiting for a heart for 2,500 days.
Hemos estado esperando un corazón por 1 año y medio. My name is Gavin, and I've been waiting for a heart for 7 years. I've been waiting for a heart for 500 days.
Okay, so obviously right away they have a character, you're connecting with somebody, there's a really clear call to action, they want you to become an organ donor, and they show you how to do that. So I know that most of us don't have the capacity to produce something like this, so I'm going to be using examples throughout this talk of organizations that I think are just blowing it out of the water, and I hope that you'll be able to take a couple of things from this that you can use as inspiration and say, I really like what they did here. Can we try and do that on our website or in our social media, and just build off of the inspiration from some of these examples. And when you connect with people on this emotional level, they want to become advocates and volunteers and donate to your mission. So there's online engagement, and then there's engagement that actually helps you fulfill your mission. And I think that online engagements are sort of steps along the way to getting people involved enough to want to donate money or take an action like becoming an organ donor. So online engagements are a way for you to start to build that relationship and credibility and trust with people to get them to do something in service of your mission. So that's how we're defining engagement today. And online engagements can be anything like email list signups, follows on social media, website click-throughs. It's all those little things that involve a click or a like, or somebody interacting in any way with your organization on the internet. So the first thing that you're gonna wanna do to start creating really good engagement with your audience is figure out who they are. So a lot of people will say that their audience is everyone, but you'll need to create a really target audience so you can craft your messages and put them in the right places so that the right people see them. One way to do this is to create audience personas. So basically you write down a whole bunch of characteristics of who your ideal audience member is, like where they live, how old they are, what kind of job they have, anything you can think of that helps you visualize this person that your marketing is supposed to reach. And always also consider, as you're doing this and any of the things in this presentation, consider who you're leaving out when you are visualizing who this person is. So also think about who doesn't, who are you not considering in this picture. So one way, if you don't know who your supporters are already, or who your ideal audience member is to talk to people who you know are engaged in your organization, like people who have donated, maybe people who have participated in programs. So if you're like, I really want to create my audience persona, but I don't know where to start, you can literally do online surveys or call people up and say, hey, like, what do you really value about our organization? Ask them things like if they find the website easy to use, and just get direct feedback from people who you already know care about your organization. It could just be 5 people, but call them up and ask them how they're doing, and learn what they're most familiar with about you. So I have a couple of examples of what an audience persona looks like. Here's one. Don't know if you can see this. from Cosmic. So they have a picture of a person, how often she donates. She donates every month, what her education level is, where she lives. And this is just an imaginary person, but what this helps me do, or you do as a marketer, is say, okay, I know that this person really likes science fiction and she's got a master's degree and she loves hanging out in bookstores. So maybe I can go put my brochures in bookstores and she'll find them there. So it just helps you get down really targeted in your both your messaging and where you put those messages, and what you want from audience members and what makes sense for you to ask of them. This is just another example. This person has a bachelor's degree. This is what they like. This is the kind of engagement that you think they're most likely to do. So maybe this person isn't a monthly donor, but it's the perfect kind of person you want to be volunteering. So these are really detailed and they're going to help you visualize your visuals and marketing and things like that. So, and again, feel free to put questions in the chat box. Thanks to everyone who's using it already. So once you know who you're talking to, you want to develop relationships with those people. And storytelling, storytelling, storytelling. It's like the location of the internet. Definitely focus on developing characters and those emotional connections and bringing people into your organization by helping them understand deeply what you're doing for the community. It also will help you create a track record and credibility with people when you ask them to do something. So think about who are the main characters of your organization's successes. Who will your target supporter who you've just defined feel most personally connected to? For example, main characters might be people who've participated in programs that you have, who you've helped or supported in some way. One example would be if you are an organization that provides support animals, your main character for storytelling could be a child with a disability who just received their first support dog. Like everyone's hearts are going to go out for that. And think about those moments all over the place where you can create emotional connections through that. And we're going to look at an example of an email later that does this really well. So this is basically virtual content strategy, which is with an emphasis on storytelling. So I'm just going to go through a few questions for you to ask yourselves when you're thinking about what kind of content makes sense for the audience that you've defined. So look at past outreach efforts. What's worked? Look at everything, like in-person events that you've done, to mailers, to social media campaigns, and stop doing things that are wasting your energy and not having results. And we'll talk about metrics a little bit at the end of this, but just figuring out where you are right now, what platforms you haven't taken advantage of yet, and things like that can give you a really good idea of where to go next. And then write everything down that you do that's amazing, that you're really proud of within your organization. Andrea at the Portland Opera will call these your superpowers. What amazing volunteers do you have, or reports that have data-driven support for what you do, awards your organization has received, or any program that you're really proud of. Like those are things that are going to shine, and your passion about them is also going to come through when you're creating strategy. And also make an editorial calendar. It's going to help you organize your thoughts and diversify the kinds of stories you're telling, and help you see visually what platforms you're using the most or that you're neglecting. So I have an example. This is just a really basic editorial calendar that I downloaded off the internet. I literally use a spreadsheet at TVC that is not even as complicated as this one, but you have your day of the week that you're going to post and what channel you're posting on, what it's going to say, when you're going to post it, and then notes. So you can also add notes of like, this had so many likes, or nobody reacted to this. You can also use like a third-party app like Hootsuite or Sprout Social if you want, that can do a lot of this for you. My spreadsheet is literally the dates across the top with the types of content in a matrix, and I just update the dates every week so I can make sure I'm doing a variety of different kinds of posts. Okay, so this is another question for the chat box. Which of these do you have? And I've got the chat open, I can see it this time. So I would love to hear if anybody has a TikTok or if anybody's still using a Tumblr. I bet most everyone here has a website and a Facebook, so feel free to pop into the chat and share what kinds of platforms you're currently using. So give everybody a second. Website, Instagram, Facebook, that's pretty much what we use. Top 5. Except think, ooh, Angela, are you using TikTok? Because I would love to hear about your experience. YouTube.
We have a lot of kids, and so we. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm kind of jack of all trades. I'm an opera singer, so I worked with Portland Opera for many, many years, and we have a private voice studio in town that I'm mostly interested coming to this wonderful platform for that. I'm also a university teacher, so also wanting to help our university music programs in any way too, just as a contribution. But yeah, TikTok with the kids, that's pretty popular. So we've been trying to flex that muscle. Thank you again for this wonderful class today. I'll bounce out.
Okay, yeah, thanks for joining. All right, Valley Arts, got a TikTok, nice. And then mostly website, Instagram, and Facebook. I think those are the most common ones, especially among us, small organizations. So since almost everybody has a website, I'm going to start by doing a deep dive into websites. This is going to be where most people go to learn the most about your organization. So it's really important. And I'm just going to, for each of these sections on specific tools, give basically a laundry list of food for thought. And you all have this presentation and it's being recorded too. So if you need to access it later, you can do that because I'm going to go through a lot of things. So the first question with regard to your website is, what story does your homepage tell visitors? Is it a brochure for your organization, or does it actually tell a human-centered emotional story? And I have an example that we'll look at right after this as well. Is it obvious how to participate in programs, volunteer, sign up for things, and donate? It should be so easy to find these things when somebody lands on your homepage. And also make sure you're integrating everything. And I'll mention this again a few times, but on your website, you should have very clear links to your social media and to your email newsletters and vice versa. So on your social media, it should clearly link back to your website so people can navigate easily between your communications channels. And getting feedback is so helpful. And getting feedback on your website can be watching somebody try to navigate your website. At TVC, we've talked about doing this over Zoom. Like, get a volunteer or a board member on Zoom and ask them questions like, if you wanted to donate, how would you do it? And then you can see how long it takes them to navigate or how difficult it is for them to find that action. Another thing that's really important is to see what your website looks like on a phone. Like 60% of website visits are done on mobile. And if nobody can navigate your website on a phone, that's going to be an issue. So take a look, see what it looks like. Fixing it is maybe a whole nother story, but at least you can know whether it's accessible that way or not. Another thing, if you're a visual artist, another question might be, if somebody wanted to buy art, how would they do that? So anything that's relevant to what you're trying to accomplish, see how long it takes somebody to navigate to that. And then here's a website example that I grabbed from Literacy Partners. So a couple things that I really like about this screenshot here is I know where I am. This is the first thing I look at, their name, Literacy Partners, But then they have this bright pink donate button that I cannot miss. It is so much brighter than everything else on their page. And then they have this really nice clean menu. It's not confusing. And then I love how human focused these boxes are. Every single one of these has multiple people in it, and they're looking and they're smiling. And I'm like, oh, this organization brings people joy. And they literally have a story right here about a mother who uses reading to connect with her children. And you can learn about that and connect with those people. And then this Team Literacy Partners has a really clear call to action: join Team Literacy Partners. So I know exactly what they're asking me to do, and I'm going to feel an emotional connection to these people that I see right on their homepage. Okay, another question for the chat box. Thank you guys for participating in the interactive portion so far. If you could write the story of your organization in one sentence, what would it be? And you don't have to share this in the chat, but think about what is the compelling reason that people need to know about your organization. And this isn't your mission. This is like, if you want somebody to consider donating to your organization and they only get one sentence about you, what would that be? So I'm just going to give everybody a minute to think about the story of their organization in one sentence. If anybody has questions, again, please feel free to share. Local musicians passionate about sharing their art with the community. Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Crystal. That's awesome. It makes me feel like I want to help them get their music out. Like, I want to help them share this, and I want to help you help them. If anybody else has one, feel free to throw it in there and give us about 1 more minute.
Angie had a sense of belonging and connection through music. I think that that's a great one too. It's the superpowers.
Yeah, sense of belonging and connection. Bringing the opportunity for children to learn and thrive through participation in theater. Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Alicia, teaching artists, showing community and children science is fun and easy to learn through hands-on art-related projects. I love that. I have a science background, so anytime we can throw science in there with the art, I get very excited. And then Michael, an organization where musicians of all ages can perform together. That sounds so nice. Thank you, Michael. Valley Art is a group of artists and enthusiasts bringing visual beauty and arts education to the community. That is lovely. April, thank you for joining. I love the programs that you're doing with Valley Art. And just a little shout out there for them. Okay. So we're gonna move on to emails. Since I think after websites, almost everybody sends emails. I think a lot of us just send emails kind of randomly. So this is, another laundry list, but it has a lot of the same ideas that we've already talked about. And one thing that I really want to emphasize with emails is that people who are getting your emails already know something about you. They have invested enough in your organization to sign up. So it's not like social media where any random person can hit follow and suddenly they're following you. They've actually probably gone to your website and filled in a form. So take advantage of that by making, again, story-heavy appeals to this group. And we're gonna look at another example of this too. So your stories or your emails, of course, should tell a human story. It's one of the themes. Send emails with regularity. So like we have at TVC a weekly events email that goes out every Tuesday morning and a monthly creative industry news that goes out usually in the first week of the month. So telling people in advance what to expect when they sign up so they know you're not going to spam them all the time, and then more or less sticking to that. Sure, we send emails sometimes that are not on those schedules, but overall, we are fulfilling our promise that we've made to people who are signing up with us. Make it personal, send it from a real person in your organization, provide clear calls to action. Usually that means just one in an email. Like, what one thing do you want this person reading your email to do? Don't give them 5 different things to do in an email, because people don't actually read that much and they'll get overwhelmed, especially right now. And giving people the option to unsubscribe is another thing I want to highlight. A lot of organizations will actually send an email that is just asking people to unsubscribe, or like asking them if they want to unsubscribe. So then you know that the people who are on your list really want to be on your list, and they're going to be more engaged because of that. So we're just going to look at an example from the San Francisco SPCA that I love. So it's personal, it's to someone, first name. There's this awesome story of the lovable dog with the brown spots who lost her puppies. I'm instantly emotionally invested in this. They've got a picture of this cute dog. And then their donation levels are really specific. So they're asking you to donate, and they're telling you exactly what that donation is going to go for. And this isn't necessarily just an email thing, but I really liked how they did it here, because now I know when I give $15 a month, it's not going into the void. It's helping provide warm blankets to kittens and puppies, which, like, everybody wants to do that. And then there's a clear call to action to save lives today, pretty clear. There's a thank you, thank people. They're giving you their time and energy and maybe money. And the integrated sharing bar, Facebook, Twitter, website. And at the very bottom, you have the option to unsubscribe. So this is just kind of my anatomy of an email breakdown, and I think that the SPCA did a really good job. So the last thing we're going to look at is social media. And I know a lot of you said you have Facebook and Instagram and maybe some LinkedIn's in there. So again, like I mentioned, social media followers might know basically nothing about what you do. On the bright side, it does allow you to connect with more people, raise broad awareness about your programs, and help them become engaged by telling them stories. So when you create those audience personas, you're also going to be thinking about what kind of content those people want. Like, if your audience is graduate science students, maybe they want infographics all the time. Or maybe you're a visual artist and you want people to come see your show. Doing things like posting pictures of visual art might be really engaging, just images. And overall, pretty much, video is always going to get more engagement. And that doesn't mean that other types of posts with thought about who your audience is aren't going to do well too. And remember not to always post stuff about yourself. So I think maybe a third of posts can be about you and your programs, but think about if your audience personas want to hear about you all the time, or if you can show them that you're an expert in the field and you're going to curate content for them. So this can help you gain credibility with your audience and get really dedicated followers, because you're taking information from other places and giving it to them. And I see Razi asked a question over here. MailChimp, Constant Contact. Yeah, we use MailChimp. I've used Constant Contact before. Yeah, sometimes it goes into junk folders. That's an endless struggle, I think. Okay, so I have a chart here, a couple fun charts coming up. The world's most used social platforms. This is from Hootsuite. I also really recommend their blogs and stuff if you want to learn, if you want more detailed information about everything that I'm talking about today. Hootsuite's an awesome resource. These are numbers in millions around the world. So you got Facebook, and YouTube is second. We just started a YouTube channel, just realizing how engaging video is and how many people are on it. You got Instagram down here, TikTok almost right behind Instagram now. I'm thinking about making a TikTok for TVC one of these days. So that's just some food for thought. A couple people on Pinterest still. So again, these are just some quick, basic things to think about on social media. Follow organizations that are similar to yours and bigger and that you admire. And you might be able to collaborate with them, like dream big. Everybody's virtual right now. Or at least you can learn from what they're doing. I got that Steve Jobs quote popped into my head: good artists borrow, great artists steal. See what really big global organizations in the arts or national symphonies are doing. Maybe you can pick their Instagram feeds a little bit for some inspiration. You want to post regularly, not more than once a day. Once a day I think is too much, but at least once a week. Otherwise people are going to get to your account and realize that you're not, or they're going to think you don't exist anymore. You have to engage with people for them to engage with you also. If somebody takes the time to comment on your post, respond to their comment, whether it's good or bad, and go into other accounts and comment on things if you want to tap into that audience. So this is a big time suck, and I know we all have limited capacity, but if you don't go onto influential accounts and comment and respond to people, now maybe set a goal of like once a week, I'm gonna go to a new art nonprofit account and leave a comment on one of their posts, just to do a little bit more outreach outside of my immediate circles. Remember to tag your partners, make it personal again, say thank you. Everybody on social media is just like, you know, you and me, we're humans on the other side of a screen. So saying thank you, saying people's names, it all counts, because you are actually building real relationships with other humans, even though it doesn't always feel like it. And be sure to, again, give really specific calls to action. If you want people to follow you, put that in your email. If you want people to visit your website, put that on your social. Make sure everything, again, is all integrated. And Portland Opera has some really great email examples, or social media examples, sorry, to show you. So I'm going to skip examples of social campaigns because Andrea's are awesome. Oops, where's my mouse? All right. So the last tool we're going to touch on is streaming. Have you done a live streamed event? This is the next chat box question. And if you have done a live streamed event, what platform did you use? Just curious if anybody's tried it. Zoom to Facebook. Awesome. Anyone else done any live streaming? Or maybe you do it for fun. Oops. Ditto. Virtual holiday social experience. Nice. Planning on doing live stream events. Cool. Okay. Facebook Live programs, Zoom event. Yeah, thank you for joining our Zoom event. School year theater lunch tonight on Zoom. Awesome. Feel free to send a link to that to everybody. You're welcome to promote yourself in there in the chat. Awesome. So there's a lot of available tools for live streaming. As many of you mentioned, Facebook Live, Zoom, you might use Twitch, YouTube, whatever. We're going to be doing our fall fundraiser on IGTV, so that should be fun and interesting. And you can do performances, classes, fundraisers, raffles, whatever you want. It's only limited by your imagination, really. You can find ways to replicate all of these things. And one of the things that I really like about live streaming events is it's just a lot more personal, and it's in real time. So you can build a lot of community through chat, especially like on Twitch or Facebook Live. We're chatting here. There's really good opportunities to feel like you're actually in a room with people and feel like you're mingling. Facebook Live is probably my favorite. Twitch moves way too fast for me, but I highly recommend that. You also have the opportunity to connect with people you're not geographically bound to. And maybe that's not usually your goal, but in my opinion, it never hurts to have a new perspective and reach new audiences and learn from them. And last, always test things before you go live. You're going to have technical difficulties. It's going to happen. So get on early, set a date before your event to try everything out, and ask people who have done live events what's gone wrong when they've done them, because that is an awesome way to learn. Let's see. All right, so we're almost done with my section here. And I'm just gonna really briefly touch on measuring engagement, and we could have a whole nother presentation on this. So if you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer in terms of the measuring engagement, but I'm not gonna spend a ton of time here. The basic thing is if you don't measure in some way what you're doing across all of these tools, you're not gonna know what's working. So take a little bit of time to create an engagement plan to help you recruit volunteers, get donations, or spread the word about what you do without wasting so much time. I'm gonna show you some common metrics. Google Analytics, highly recommend. Emails, MailChimp, or Constant Contact, they will all give you information like open rates. One thing I really recommend doing if you're a nonprofit, or a small business, compare your open rates with the industry standard, and MailChimp gives those to you. You can also Google them. So the nonprofit average open rate is like 20%. So even if only 25% of your emails are getting open and it doesn't feel like very much, you're actually doing quite well. So it's good to have some kind of external benchmark to compare to. And I always keep track of the unsubscribes. Are you sending too many emails and people are unsubscribing, or it's not relevant? That's really good information to know. And what we do is just keep track of things month over month. So basically, you're looking, since a lot of us don't have a lot of capacity, what I do is trend tracking. So I just want to see overall, are we moving in the right direction? I'm not going to go into every little minute detail. You certainly can, but you don't have to. And then, if, I'm losing followers every month, you can reevaluate your strategy. We also do an annual goal, an annual report with goals set year over year. So month over month and year over year. And one thing to think about in terms of separating out the online engagement versus that more meaningful engagement is like, you can do online engagement like how many followers you have or how many likes you got year over year, but what's really gonna be valuable in your annual report is things like, have our donations increased? Have the average number of people coming to our workshops increased? So I might set a goal like, last year, every event we did had about 10 people. This year, I would like every event to have about 15. And that is really measuring a much more meaningful degree of involvement in your organization. This is just another fun chart, and also something to hopefully make you feel a little bit better. The truth is that most engagement rates are really low. So if you make a Facebook post and only 3 people click on it, that's actually not bad. So this one all the way to the left is average engagement rate for Facebook page posts of any kind. So if 100 people see your post, probably only 2 or 3 of them are going to click on it, and that is totally normal. So there's also just some adjustment in maybe how you're thinking about engagement. Videos always do better, but they still only get 6% engagement. So don't beat yourself up if you only have a couple people clicking on things. And again, if you want more detailed information on any of this stuff, definitely check out Hootsuite blog and videos and things like that. So again, we talked about what engagement is, creating those connections and contact and relationships with people, determining who you want to talk to, who is the most meaningful for you to talk to, creating a content strategy so you have a diverse kinds of information and information that's meaningful for your followers, focusing on human-centered storytelling, and using online tools for relationships first, transactions second. You need to have some kind of relationship and credibility with people before you ask them to do things for you. So that is the end of my presentation. Oops. Feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat. You can also take a quick 5-minute break, take a stretch before Portland Opera's portion of this workshop. So I'm going to try to minimize this. So I'm going to make Andrea the host here so she can share her presentation.
Okay, it says I'm the host now. I'm going to get this all set up while questions are asked.
Yeah, again, feel free to chat box or unmute yourself during this portion. Around 12:54, 55, we can dive into the next section. I know 2-hour Zoom calls are a little bit long.
So this is Ravier. That was, I think the parts that I loved the most about Ashley, some of the pictures and graphs that you were sharing, were like the human part. I think now that we're physically so far away from each other to really share our human pictures, and the social media engagement, because it is kind of interesting to have 900 people as followers and have 10 people engage, or some very small number that actually click and respond. And I can see that being really a damper when you're looking at your other numbers and saying, oh, I was really hoping that 300 people would have clicked or engaged. But I'm glad to know that there is actually kind of a standard, a baseline to that. That was a good graph.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it definitely made me feel better.
Yeah, so I'm curious to know from some of our other callers and online visitors, like what are the things that you're doing that either are working extremely well or that you're doing and wondering why you're not getting the engagement that you thought it might have? Or even some of the things that you're doing to engage with other organizations that you like, and what those things in those other organizations are exciting. 3 questions in one.
We're just starting this process with the quote unquote school year starting, but trying to reach out to other instructors, whether it be choir directors or other choir arts organizations that deal primarily with vocalists, to help with content, because I think that that is kind of a huge thing right now where, of course, everything's online, and for something to be that we can help out just in terms of just a different interface, different information. That's something that we're trying, just again in an effort to feel connected and feel like, we're all in this together, and let's keep swapping good ideas, and hopefully that those relationships keep building upon each other, where there's only so many hours in the day and people are exhausted looking at a screen, so if somebody else can say and take it, that we're just trying to help our community partners in that sense. One thing that I had alluded to earlier is we're providing more performing opportunities in some sense than we have been able to in the past. We would maybe as a studio have quarterly recitals and whatnot. Now we're having monthly themed virtual concerts, and it's been great. It's been keeping kids goal oriented, and I think also for other people to tune in, people that wouldn't normally be able to see a relative of theirs perform, that now is having that opportunity. And I think that that's something that's been, really, really wonderful to provide. Another thing that we're doing is that we're, we wouldn't be able to do this in normal circumstances, but to be able to call upon colleagues of ours to give virtual master classes. In normal times, we wouldn't have the funds to be able to fly them out and put them up, but to be able to engage with some of these artists at such a particular level, I think is exciting, not only for that master teacher, but also for the student, that, everything is shut down. There haven't been any, well, I think there's been very few in person, which has made me really nervous to watch that, but classes and seminars and things like that. And so, a lot of times people just don't have anything to put on their resume. So to be able to offer not only, an opportunity to say, hey, I had this opportunity to have this master class with this master teacher, that's something that keeps the momentum going, and again, goal oriented. So that's been a little bit of something that we've been just trying out on our end.
That is wonderful. I love that. I think like what you pointed out in being able to do stuff online does make it easier where we're not traveling to a venue or where we can log on or watch something later. And I love that the masterclass opportunity or getting instructors in that otherwise were unattainable. That's fabulous.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add real quick for the chat. If anybody wants to connect after this and you need email addresses or anything like that, feel free to email me. You can just email info@tvcreates.org. I think Razier might be putting it in the chat, and happy to connect you with each other or with any resources that get mentioned today. All right, Andrea, I think we've had a solid 5-minute break. If you're ready,
I'm totally ready. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to dive right in. I put together some thoughts about what Portland Opera has been trying to do as a team in terms of engagement strategies during this time. And I wanted to start before I jump in by saying that I've worked in nonprofit arts and culture for 15 years in different scales of companies. And so I have sat through presentations like this where I felt like, oh, great, because you have a giant marketing team and a giant staff and you get to figure all of this out. And I want to make sure that that what we focus on today is scalable. And so I really do, understand that sometimes it's one person or two people, and that not everybody has what Portland Opera has in terms of our external affairs, our department. So I recognize that, and I'm hoping a lot of this is scalable. And so from there, I'll just dive in. So the first challenge before we even start talking really about engagement is to name what it is that's happening. And the reason I wanted to start here is because I think that, like Ashley mentions in the presentation, everybody's a person first. We are trying to navigate a lot right now for the organizations and students and constituents and audience members and artists that we love and care about. So for me, when our team, after our February performance, when we had to cancel our production of Bayezid in March, and then the rest of the 1920 season, it became really important to define what is it that we're facing. And what we're facing is crisis management. And that is how an organization of any size deals with disruptive and unexpected events. And along with crisis management comes crisis communications, whether or not we want to be crisis communicators or we're ready to be crisis communicators. It is demanded as part of crisis management. And that's really about protection. So trying to, if it has felt like you have to think through things more than normal or try to be, so deliberate and so careful and pays specific attention to the challenges more so than normal, it's because we do. That's real. That's part of how we navigate this. And so I wanted to share this little graph about understanding the disruption life cycle. So when a crisis occurs, this is the sort of path that we can assume that it will take. It doesn't always go in a linear fashion like this. It can kind of cycle back between certain phases of it. And it's hard to think sometimes about really where we are within this continuum. There are times like in March, I was like, oh, okay, we're getting to command phase. And then like, just kidding, we're gonna, have to make another change or understand the situation in a new way. So I just wanted to share this as a resource to sort of keep in mind as you think about where your organization is and also where we are just as people and kind of understanding the crises that we're facing. The next part of naming the situation is also change. So there's crisis and crisis communications, and then there's change and change communications. And change management, this is a more normal thing for us to have to navigate as practitioners and organization leaders. It's the controlled identification and implementation of required changes. We do this all the time in small ways and large ways as our organizations develop. And we, are usually able to connect stakeholders in the public throughout those changes. So for instance, if you're launching a new Facebook page, that you're able to sort of connect with your audience and say, hey, this is a change, we did this, or now we're on TikTok, you can find us here. Those kinds of, that's all change communications. But what's important to keep in mind is that whether or not the change is good or bad or positive or negative, it still follows the same Kubler-Ross cycle, which is the grief cycle. And I have that here as a reminder. So this is, again, a nonlinear sort of continuum that we can use to help navigate change. And this happens whether it's personal change and grief that we're facing, or for an organization. This is the exact same path both ways. And I think that this is really important in this time, because a lot of the changes that we're navigating at our organizations are mirrored in our lives and in the lives of our company members, our artists, our families, our students. And there is grief, there is frustration, there is a lot of challenges that we have to overcome. And I think it's really important to understand that people kind of flow this way through change, and so do organizations and companies. So when you sort of add compounded change with crisis management and lots of changes, I mean, now we have to stream our programs, or now we have to offer virtual recitals, or now, we can't do what we do. The sort of answer that we came to was, this needs clarity. So designing clarity through some of the ways Ashley was talking about, in terms of what is our messaging, where do we want to share that messaging, where can we share that messaging, how often, and who are we trying to reach, so that we can try to be mindful about how we're navigating overlapping changes. So if you think of that change grief curve, like 10 billion times overlapping, and then you add in this crisis continuum, it can get really messy. And I think it's a time that is challenging all of us as arts organizations and cultural organizations to meet it with clarity. And the next sort of takeaway solution that we had was exhibit empathy, because as much as our organizations are going through changes and crises, so are the people who work at our organizations, who we serve through our organizations. And so practicing social listening becomes really key in defining these strategies. And then, but the last thing is to go with the flow and have that same empathy towards yourself too, because these are really fluid situations, and it's demanding so much adjustment. And the fact of the matter is, we are not going to get it right all the time. Like, you can just take that perfectionism and toss it out the window, is what I say to my team all the time, because we can't. There's no way that we can get everything right all the time with this. So those were our sort of strategies. So as we tried to take those strategies and move them into engagement tactics, we were thinking, okay, once we're over the initial grief of having to cancel things, what can we do to leverage this opportunity? What moment in time can this be for Portland Opera and for the community that we serve? So that kind of came into some buckets. Try to adapt and continue public programming is definitely one bucket. So pop-up events around town with different partners, balcony concerts where amazing singers like Angie and Matthew can share programming with passersby from a safe and social distance from our headquarters. Looking at community events, and then trying to figure out the digital live stream, which I know is challenging, and there are a lot of options and information out there. So the next sort of engagement bucket we asked was, what are our superpowers and how can we help? We have an amazing costume shop that can sew amazing costumes. They can also make masks. We have an amazing community and education manager, and she designs curricula all the time. How can she kind of pivot to offer at-home education activities for folks that are having to homeschool and work and manage everything? How can we offer wellness check-ins? So we had a couple of ways to do this, but really caring about our community and trying to figure out how to connect with audiences. How can we help our partners? So the companies that stand by us throughout the season that are suffering because of retail closures or because of their own challenges during this, how can we leverage our platform to shine a light on them? And then with the murder of George Floyd, it also became about Black Lives Matter at this moment. So how can we stand with our Black colleagues? How can we celebrate opera at protests? How can we be quiet when we need to be quiet? And what is really going on in our community? And then the third sort of bucket for engagement was communicate and offer pathways for reciprocal engagement. So, continuing with patron surveys, having clear emotional messaging around the story that we're trying to tell as we plan for joy, and sharing company updates. So all of this was supported by data, social listening, and evaluation. And beneath all of this is a big bucket, which is we're shifting to a lot of internal work and strategic planning targets that aren't public, and that's okay, but it's still work that the company's doing to try to use this moment wisely. So goal number 1 was adapt and continue public programming. What content can we create and share? So we had a resident artist recital that was canceled. And so we took a video of Jeffrey, our current resident artist at the time, and shared it just as a little clip. Antonia Tamer, who was a former resident artist, shared a balcony concert, and we wanted to highlight what she was doing. And then we had the opportunity to ask one of our resident artists just to put together a playlist. So it was just a simple playlist on Spotify, but it was her mixtape. And so that was sort of one way that we could share some engagement. And then we also did more sort of, at home concerts. We decided to serenade OHSU from our balcony. And so we've had these sort of pop-up performances where we don't broadcast them online, and we can't really publicize them beforehand because we don't want to encourage gathering. But when there's a selection afterwards that we can share, like if the rights agreements make it permissible to share, we do share little snippets afterwards. But it's really just for passersby. Like if someone happens to be in Southeast and they're walking across the Telecom, they will be serenaded. And then we also did a series of live events highlighting our resident artists. And this was a big undertaking for us. It was our first sort of live broadcast events, and trying to figure that out and how to do that is hard, even with a full production team, I will tell you. So those were some ways that we were able to connect. We also, asked what content can we share as partners in the community? So what are others doing? How can we use our platform? So Portland Sunday Parkways did an event with a former resident artist. We wanted to share that. Artslandia has had these amazing happy hour series, and so we wanted to share those. And then the Polka Dot Courthouse Square pop-up performances, trying to use our platform to highlight the successes that other community partners are also having, because all of us are having a hard time navigating who we are and what we're doing in this moment. So then the next sort of question we asked was, what are our superpowers and how can we help, right? So like I said, we have Christine Richardson, our costume director, made masks. This was one of my favorite things that happened. So we launched a joke telling series to people who, it kind of ended up working out as wellness call check-ins, but we have one really, really, really funny, cheesy joke patron services rep in our team named Torin, and he always tells dad jokes and they always crack us up. And he, when this happened and we shut down, he was just like, I want to call my portfolio of patrons and just tell them opera jokes. Like, I just want to make them laugh and see how they're doing. So we created a request form where you could request a joke, an opera joke or classical music joke, or a photo of one of our pets. You could request it for yourself or for someone else. And then we would deliver the joke on your behalf and check in with you to let you know how the person was doing. So it ended up being, I mean, we were calling way more than just our subscribers. It's gone far more than 200 jokes at this point. But it's really been a fun way to make a random phone call, connect with somebody. They love hearing that someone else was thinking of them and that we could sort of be a conduit to that. So my favorite joke, and everyone in our organization did this. Our general director, Sue Dixon, got on the phone. Our CFO would tell opera jokes. Like, everybody picked up the phone to share a joke. My favorite is, why do pirates listen to opera music? And the answer is because they love the high seas. So that's an example of a really bad, cheesy opera joke. We also tried to do some at-home educational activities. So something that, you know, varied every week about, like, okay, what if you colored these puppets and sang an opera? Or what if you followed this sort of at-home guideline to understand more about the voice, or anything like that. And those all came from Alexis Hamilton, our education and community engagement manager. And then, like I said, we did community partner spotlights. So for instance, Remy Wines is one of our wine partners, and Remy's amazing and a huge opera fan. And we wanted to sort of share updates about how, you know, they're doing home delivery or when they open or that kind of thing. So this was an example of one of our community partner spotlights. And then also using our platforms to amplify voices. So Henri, who is a member of the Portland Opera Chorus, has also been bringing opera to protests in Portland. And we connected with him and his team and really wanted to share what it is that he was doing and how opera was playing a role because of him and his amazing work in these protests. And we hosted Risk Rewards distanced performance of Pavement in our parking lot for free. That was awesome. They were looking for a home to do a safe performance, and we had one, and so we connected with them. And looking at the sort of colleagues and what the national conversation is in the opera field right now, we were able to share some info, like LA Opera and a lot of other panels that have been going on as the field tries to grapple with some major issues. So sometimes our superpower is being quiet and really doing the work internally. And we did share this post on June 18th that we decided to close our offices in observance of Juneteenth. It was the first time that we did that. And then we closed for a 2-day all-staff learning lab about dismantling racism and organizational transformation for ourselves and for our field. And honestly, this was one of our most engaged social media posts during this entire cancellation time. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So what we learned is logistics. There's a lot of logistics to learn. We learned that less is more. So engagement is more meaningful when we're not sharing daily. We tried that when we first kind of had to close down, and it was not sustainable for anyone. And that this is an opportunity to really consider who we are in the community, even if and especially if our artistic practices must adapt at this time. So in terms of offering pathways for engagement, which was another one of our buckets, you know, we really tried to segment thoughtfully through, if you think back to the sort of change and crisis management, you know, people, they don't just want to read a press release about a cancellation. It's not it's not meaningful. You know, for us, it was about the order of operations. So who knows what first and why? And of course, that always starts internally with artists and musicians and staff. And then once we can make a public announcement about something, it's always our subscribers and members and donors who know first, because we don't ever want to talk to press or public, without saying that, in a message that we shared with our subscribers or in a message that we shared with our artists, because the order of operations can be really, really important in sort of bringing people through change and crisis. So to think through how you're choosing to communicate that change means, plan for the sort of spheres of how things go public. So for us, we made a video that was a Let's Plan for Joy video that was really more of an emotional storytelling piece to share with our subscribers and donors that talked, it kind of was, our staff was in tears watching it when we made it, because it kind of is about the grief that comes with not being able to be together right now, and that our promise during this time is that we are planning for joy. We're planning to come back stronger when we can be together. And then just really trying to make things transparent. So on the flip side, like, yes, a beautiful emotional video is wonderful to put together, and having clear updates, having the sort of like, we have a new web page just about what COVID-19 means at Portland Opera and how we're navigating it, so that you can have that transparency and let people get more information as they want it. We also, continued with surveys. So usually we have surveys surrounding productions. In this instance, we didn't have productions, so we just wanted people to dream with us. So to let them know we're reflecting at this time and we want them to reflect with us. So, what do you want to see and hear on stage? What cancellations disappointed you? How do you feel about coming back together and gathering? And we also sent, traditional postcard, which I know seems really weird to do at this time, but direct mail still matters to people. And we just sent a good vibes postcard being like, we're thinking about you and we're sending you good vibes. We also, asking the question about how people are feeling and about safety and what will be important to them when they can come back to Portland Opera is as crucial as the mandates and everything else that we're trying to navigate, because listening to people and trying to plan for what your audience needs is really important. And then, trying to find segmented communications even on our social channels and that kind of thing. This was a little joke post we made about how we feel about having to cancel our subscriber open house, because it just, again, sort of shares that grief. We've also continued with strategic plan updates. We've continued with social listening reports. We've kind of doubled down on social listening reports. And we transformed our website. So the little screenshot you see here for updates in community used to be all of our productions in a row. And instead it was like, okay, well, how can we use the same real estate on our website to talk about cultural equity, to talk about our responses, to talk about activities for kids, and to offer jokes to folks. So what we learned is understand the bigger picture. Make information available easily, but don't make everything about us, which is really difficult for the art form that actually invented divas. So I think everyone remembers when you got an email from every single company you've ever bought anything from telling exactly how they're navigating the COVID-19 virus, and it was all the exact same. I mean, no one really needs to care, but if they do need information, it's important to keep it available to them. I would also say we learned that social listening can and should inform operational priorities during crisis and change management. So an example is that we changed our policies to permit ticket refunds and to permit people to donate their tickets back to us. And as we handled those requests when we canceled the 1920 season, we prioritized refunds. And that was a full team decision, because that patron's personal situation had changed. They needed a refund. Let's do that first. We can handle the rest of it later. And I would also say we learned it's okay to utilize traditional channels in non-traditional ways. So send a postcard, why not? Look at your email rhythms and figure out if there's another type of communication you want to start sending, like a strategic plan report or an update, or a survey that has a different tone than usual. And our existing website, we adapted it to meet our new messaging needs. So then finally, the last bucket was use this time if you can to make quiet progress. So shifting internally, looking at strategic planning targets, and how can you kind of use this time to make progress. And for us, that's a big old list. We're working on a new website. We're working on a new ticketing platform. We started a rebranding phase in December, and it has been a process that has changed so many times through all of these changes. So having the opportunity to rebrand during a time that we can't function the way that we usually do has been challenging and asked some questions of us for sure about what it is we do and why we do it. Updating mission, vision, values, holding staff and board anti-racism learning labs. These were a nightmare to schedule when we were in season. And having the opportunity to say, you know what, no, we can close down the office for 2 days. Everybody can make time for this right now, is an opportunity that usually we don't have. So drafting a cultural equity plan for our organization, look at our artistic planning processes because we have more time to plan, and look at the future, think about what makes us better artists and better community members and what the community needs and how this time can teach us that. And then again, how can we continue to use our superpowers? So the stages of crisis and change are not finished yet. And as there's updated guidance, you might find that other superpowers are unlocked. So for instance, in Multnomah County right now, the guidance that we were able to follow from AGMA and from the city of Portland meant that we could take our umbrella cart out to Human Solutions shelter to do a parking lot performance. And that wasn't possible at the beginning of this, but it's something that we could do as we move through these stages of change. So thank you. I know that was a lot. I'm happy to take questions and hear your thoughts about how we might be able to scale some of these solutions for what challenges you're facing.
That was great. Thank you for all the pictures and the visuals and the joke. I think I saw a lot of nods on the joke. Please feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions or would like to share. Continue using the chat. It's a great opportunity to really connect with Ashley and Andrea.
I just applaud Portland Opera's creativity. You guys, I mean, you're in the business of creativity, right? So the fact that you've taken this moment to say, you know, what is the opportunity? What's the opportunity here? And I think that you guys have done that on all kinds of fronts with, of course, balcony concerts, but especially, developing now that resource. I'm not saying this right. Artistic. What is it, Andrea? I'm not saying this well at all, but you guys are doing a great job with that.
Thank you. And Angie, you were our final performance of the 1920 season. You'll always be our Julia Child. It's been a year.
Oh, geez, this makes me so sad. But you're right. We're all starved, and it's gonna explode. Everyone's just gonna be starved for it. So when we're safe to get back into it, careful what you wish for. That's what I always say. So congratulations. You guys have just done an excellent job and just had your finger on all kinds of pulses. So I wish you nothing but more fabulous success.
Thank you.
Any other questions? For either part of the presentation, or little details, or questions for other people in the group, all welcome.
Andrea, this is Shauna. I'm actually curious, do you have any educational outreach for kids? Obviously, I'm very theater student focused, but we would actually love to explore any opportunities like for our kids to be learning since they can't be doing. So I have a daughter that's very interested in technical theater, building sets. She had 2 internships to Broadway Rose that got canceled. And for those students that are on the technical theater, the backstage, the lights, the sounds, the costumes, they're the ones really struggling with nothing to do in this new online world. Is there any chance of like educational outreach? Just curious, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, that's a really good question. We're trying to redesign. Usually we have our, excuse me, educational touring program, and there's no way that's going to happen this year. And one of the things that's coming out of that is sort of a redesigned curriculum for a class or youth ensemble to be able to create their own opera. And that comes with all of the sort of different positions that would do that. So there's a stage manager and there's a librettist and there's the singers, but there's also the marketing team, you know? And so we're trying to find a way right now as a company to flex into that model across all departments. But in terms of technical specifically, it's so hard because our costume shop isn't operational, our stage hands, our, you know, production team. So I would like to give some more thought to that and maybe go back to our production team and ask, because even if it's a Zoom town hall for people that are interested in learning more about those careers or about what it means to be a technical director in an opera or how a fly rail system works, you know, that maybe there's a sort of like forum session. It's not as interesting as a learning by doing opportunity, but thanks, Shauna.
Thank you.
In this Creative Impact Workshop series, we're actually going to have a workshop for teens in February, which seems very far away, but we're going to have a panel of creative professionals that have taken all different paths, talking to teenagers and their parents about what options are out there for pursuing careers and education in the arts after high school. So I would encourage you to check that out too. It's going to be really good. We've got a great lineup of speakers.
Excellent. Yes, I would love to hear more about that and make it available to the ACMA kids.
I just put some of those links in the chat for everybody as well for TVC's workshops and networking events, so you can go straight to them.
Yep, and those are all free and they're all online. April, I saw your question in there. If anybody else is doing in-person socially distanced classes, I know all of our events through next spring are going to be virtual. I'm curious if anybody else has made that decision or if you're trying to do outdoor things or Cindy, 4 students per class. Are they outside? I think I saw some happening in the park indoors. Okay.
My younger daughter participated in Broadway Rose, did a series of classes over the summer, and they did a master voice class, and they only allowed 10 kids. They had them in the back loading dock, but it's like as big as the stage, 6 feet apart, singing in masks and stuff. And then they did a compilation video at the end, but it worked. It really, she had a great experience. I thought that was very cool.
That's awesome. Carly, I'm very curious to hear about your virtual field trips. What technology are you going to be using for those?
Hi, so we're doing virtual field trips where we have either a volunteer naturalist or an educator. I work at a wildlife refuge, if you saw that in the chat. So we usually have naturalists or educators that bring groups of people out onto the refuge and do guided walk-in talks. And so we're going to be doing that, but we're also putting together kits for teachers with step-by-step instructions of what we would normally do for our field trip, so they can bring their own classes out and do that on their own without us interacting with them. And also kits on how they can do their own virtual science projects or things with their own students. So we're giving out kits with like the supplies, and then we train the teacher on how the lesson goes, and then they are able to do that over Zoom for their class.
Awesome. Yeah, I love all the different things that everybody's trying. So much experimenting.
One thing I didn't touch on too much that I know was a discussion early on in this session was about actual like logistics for broadcasting events or live events. And I wasn't sure how people are feeling about that. I mean, we've had, like I said, our own challenges kind of navigating like what's possible on different platforms and how does this work. But I kind of wanted to check in about that because it feels like an important thing to be able to keep performing in some way, you know, during this time, or keep sharing what we share.
This is Beth, Toby. I have a comment just to add. So this year with our grant programs, we had Zoom meetings with all of our grant participants to talk to them about whether or not, how they were going to respond, obviously, to this COVID and how they were going to pull off their projects. And one of our grantees, well, all of them have really been trying to figure out how to do things virtually and how to make them dynamic. But one of them had really realized that rather than going with a pure live streamed event, what worked really well for them was to record the various speakers ahead of time. So, and they could edit it or, you know, deal with it however they wanted to, have that broadcast for however 20 or 30 minutes, and then the response and the Q&A was live. So the performance or the storytelling or whatever it was wasn't actually live, but the response to it was live. And that made a lot of sense to me. They felt like when it was purely 100% live, the participants were hesitant and the performers were hesitant, and it just didn't work as well. So anyway, that's a thought, and I'd love to hear feedback on that idea as well.
We've done both, and it's challenging either way. we've had live events broadcast into different platforms, and we've also done pre-recorded events that we upload and set like as a premiere in Facebook or to premiere on YouTube and Vimeo. And I think from a technical point of view, I loved having the video performances done and in the system and uploaded and ready to go on time, because I was like, look, nothing can go wrong. It'll just do its thing. But there's also something really fun about the live experience, or being able to do like a hybrid where you can have a Q&A afterwards after like a premiere.
Yeah, they were really talking about a hybrid. They felt like they had landed on that as being the most effective.
That's great. We have so we have a board member for TBC who has a small gallery in Forest Grove, and she started doing interviews with artists and would film and record and then edit that and then use the Facebook Live feature to play the video that had been edited, but then to have that chat feature as constant conversation. And then each person she interviewed was there active in the chat as well, who could hear more about their studio. And I think that worked really well for her gallery.
I will say, for those of us in sharing music, broadcasting on these platforms does have a new level of complication in terms of rights agreements versus performances that we share live. And so that has been something that that has been tough to try to navigate and really keep in mind about, you know, once you share a piece of music on the internet, it is broadcasting it. And that's been kind of prohibitive in some ways. I mean, it's also important to recognize the rights of artists and musicians, but it's definitely something that hasn't always been part of our processes or workflow in terms of thinking through what that means online.
We heard a similar thing from Blackfish Gallery. We had a networking event with us, and they were saying that one of their Facebook live stream, I think it was a gallery opening, got shut down because they were just playing music, but it's going onto the internet, which normally wouldn't be a problem if you're just playing it in a room, but it is somebody else's music that you're now broadcasting. And so there's all sorts of little unexpected technical issues like this that people are running into.
And they've shut us down even when we had the rights for something because they thought we didn't.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, don't do that to me, YouTube. I have the rights. You know, like we purchased the rights to this, but it's definitely a factor.
Yeah.
Would you guys say that maybe a workaround that, I mean, depending, especially when we're talking about like classical music, it might be hard, but for some of the more contemporary projects, a workaround might be to commission or license from a local, maybe slightly less recognized artist. That might be a workaround.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks like Siona in the chat said that it's been prohibitively expensive.
Yes. Yeah, and it's not always, even if you're doing it for free, if you're not monetizing your event or your broadcast, you still need the rights for it. And it's like, well, you know, it's that conversation of when the costs for that kind of dictate programming choices, and what situation do you find yourself in that? I mean, these are really, really big challenges that are very different than what we normally have to face in the course of our regular operations.
I like the point that you guys were making in your presentations as well about how sometimes as smaller organizations or individuals, that some of these tools that we can use to engage our audiences don't necessarily have to be at the capacity at a large, the same as a large institution with multiple staff members, but that you can still get some of the really meaningful results out of using some of these free platforms as well. That was important.
One of the things that I didn't really touch on that reminds me of is like playing with the tools. Like Instagram has a million features and they're all free. Like they have reels and stories and highlights, and you know, you have basically your grid, but then you have all these other things you can play with. And I would really encourage people to just investigate and experiment, and it doesn't cost anything except maybe some awkward accidental live video feeds. But they have all sorts of, you know, free tricks in there for you to try and get people's attention. Sounds like the questions are quieting down quite a bit, and we're getting close to 2. So I'm going to throw a couple of TVC bits of information out there. And obviously, thank you, Portland Opera, for graciously co-hosting with us. Really, really appreciated your examples and expertise and your time. And thank you again to everybody who joined us. And also thank you to City of Hillsboro and City of Beaverton for partnering with us on these workshops each year. Another thing is we have Razier is putting links over there. You can always visit our calendar and our resources for artists pages where we have grant deadlines and calls to artists and job postings, and sign up for our monthly e-news too. We put all that stuff in there and deliver it every month. And also we are a super small nonprofit like many of you, and these free workshops and professional development opportunities even over Zoom cost us some money. So if you would be open to donating to TVC to support our resources that we create like this, please visit our donation page. I think Razier is going to put that link down in there too. And you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to go into more detail about anything that I talked about today, or point you to somebody who knows more than I do.
And if anyone has follow-up questions for me, I put my email in the chat at the start, but I'll do it again because I'm happy to connect and talk through all of this as well too.
Yeah, we definitely want to thank everybody for logging in and following us and sharing the activities that we're doing, because so much of the things that we do is share your activities as well, especially as local organizations and artists. So I put in the chat our link to our online calendar as well. And as Ashley was saying, we do have an e-news that goes out once a week that actually extracts directly from the calendar. So it's a great way to wake up on Tuesday morning with your coffee and find something to do for the week online, or potentially at somebody else's balcony. And then I did share our donation page. And so along with donating dollars, anything from $10 to $10,000, it does help the programs that we do. We're also always actively looking for volunteers. And some of those volunteer options are helping with data entry, doing research, helping us find other Facebook groups that we can be part of. And then as well as we are going to be working on some micro campaigns coming up this fall. So if you really enjoy this kind of thought process and really kind of want to dive in a little bit more behind the scenes with Tualatin Valley Creates, we would love to have you sign up as a volunteer, and we'll call on you as those activities come into the forefront. So feel free to reach out at any time. Our phone number is 503-567-1713, or our general email inbox is info@tvcreate.org, and follow us on social media at tvcreate.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. This was awesome.